So good morning, everyone. Today we'll talk about the Deepfield. I hope you know the name already. But before we actually get started, let me promote for 1 minute our latest DDoS threat intelligence report for 2024 that we released a few months back. So in this report, I, by the way, included the QR code here in case you want to have a look at it. We analyzed the top trends in the DDoS space during last year, during 2024, right? So no surprises here. The first vector, the top vector that we saw for attacks in 2024 was DNS. DNS was part of 36% of the attacks that we saw, that our customers actually saw in 2024, right? Second here, it's botnets. So in 2024, our customers saw around 1 million active bots, right? That's quite a lot. 60% of the attacks, of the botnet attacks that our customers saw, used less than 100 bots. So you can imagine how many botnets, different botnets, are out there, right? Third, a new vector that we saw emerging in 2024 was this residential proxy abuse. So I don't know if you know more or less how it works. You go and install one of these free of charge VPN services in your phone, right? So when you install the app, yes, you get like a free of charge VPN, but at the same time, if you read the small contract, you are giving them access to your device. So they are proxying some traffic from other customers through your device, right? This includes DDoS attacks. So your device will be used to launch DDoS attacks, right? So you really need to read the small letter there. So that's a new trend that we saw emerging in 2024, and I can tell you it's growing in 2025 this year, right? Then we list here carpet bombing. I don't know if you know what carpet bombing is. So normally DDoS attacks will target one single IP address, right? So you have one victim and all the traffic will be directed to that victim. But there is a second way of doing it, which is carpet bombing. In this mode, you will send very little traffic, very few traffic, very small amount of traffic to many devices, right? So you normally split the attack to, I don't know, one complete subnet, let's say 256 hosts. So this means every single host will get very few megs of attack, a very small attack, right? So it may fly under the radar, right? That's the thing. Now, if you took all the traffic together, all the traffic going to this whole subnet, like this 256 or even bigger subnets, the total amount of DDoS traffic will be huge, right? That's the trick. So yeah, with legacy DDoS tools, it's hard to detect this kind of attacks, and we saw an increase in the carpet bombing traffic. So 13% of the attacks that we saw, the carpet bomb attacks that we saw, were targeting 256 plus IP addresses, and 2.8% of the attacks more than 1,000 IP addresses, right? The largest attack that we saw, carpet bombing attack, I mean, used or targeted 16,000 IP addresses. So each of these IP got very small traffic, but altogether was a very large attack. We also saw an increase in the AI and automation driven attacks. Yesterday there was a discussion about that. Yes, we see this, and it's growing now in 2025, that I can tell you. While on the other side, we saw a decrease, but a decrease in the duration of the attack. So the average duration of the attack was less than 5 minutes in 44% of the attacks that we saw in 2024, right? So the attacks are shorter, but with a higher frequency. So we see more attacks, but shorter attacks, okay? Those are the trends that we saw in 2024. And by the way, for 2025, we will publish a new report like this. I can tell you yesterday, we saw the largest attack we have ever seen. I mean, actually tonight, we saw the largest attack we have ever seen. One of our customers got a 4.85 terabit per second attack. 4.85, almost 5 terabit per second attack that we saw tonight, okay? today around 1 a.m. Yeah, please. Not here. I've seen some attacks lasting several days in a row, like 3, 4 days that I remember by heart, but I don't really have the numbers. So the longest attack we have seen, I don't know. I remember attacks for 3, 4 continuous days, but I don't know if that's the largest we have seen. Months. Okay, I hope it's not large because otherwise. Yep. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So you confirm the trends that I mentioned here, right? So thanks for that. All right. So yeah, if you want to have a look, you have the QR code here. Feel free to download and have a read. And now let's get started. So in order to mitigate this attack, how do legacy DDoS tools detect DDoS? So this might be familiar to some of you. This is how you configure a protected object or a managed object or an object, however you call it, right? So in legacy DDoS tools, when you define a new object that you want to protect, whether it's your customer, your infrastructure, whatever, an object that you want to protect, you need to go and define this list, 30 to 40 different parameters that you need to set up per customer, per object. And here you tell the system, okay, so the normal amount of DNS traffic for this customer, for this object, is this. The normal amount of NTP traffic is this. The normal amount of TCP sync traffic is this. The normal amount of UDP whatever traffic is that, right? So you need to set up this list of parameters for every single object that you create. This is, I mean, crazy to configure for the first time and then maintain, because obviously you need to keep this updated, right? If you don't, in the end, what you are doing is you are setting a threshold, right? If the traffic is under the threshold, it's good traffic. If it suddenly crosses the threshold, then it suddenly becomes bad traffic. Okay, so this is how DDoS is detected. Not very accurate, but yeah, this is how it used to work. So you really need to keep this really updated, because otherwise, you know, the small attacks may be under the radar. And then the other way around, if you have a traffic spike, like, I don't know, a new iOS release or a new game release, something like that, then your legitimate traffic may cross the threshold, right? And it may be detected as a DDoS attack. So you really need to keep this up to date, right? And imagine if you have, I don't know, 100 customers and you need to maintain this updated for all of them. It's crazy, right? But yeah, that's how it works. So the question is, how do you need your DDoS tool to be today? So you need three things. First, you need it automated, right? Forget about the list of configurations. You need something automated. Second, you need it very fast, because you saw the duration of the attack is getting shorter and shorter, right? You get more attacks, but they last less. So you need something which is very fast. Otherwise, you might detect the attack once it's over. So what's the point? And then you need to mitigate at scale. Remember, you see bigger attacks. We saw today 4.85 terabit per second attack. You really need to mitigate at scale. I will present 2 options for that. Okay, so for the first point, I said you want something automated. Imagine that you could collect and learn from every single DDoS attack out there, right? So we have many customers around the globe. They are sharing with us attack samples that they get, right? Like the one tonight. They are sharing this information under the GDTA agreement with us. We also use public forum information. We use CVE nodes and so on to collect attack samples, right? So we learn from these attacks. We learn from their characteristics, you know. So we create a huge database, a huge library, let's call it, of attacks. Then we can profile the so-called dark internet, right? So imagine that we create a map of the internet, a map where we can fingerprint IoT apps, the amplifiers, the DDoS amplifiers, the botnets, the vulnerable or misconfigured devices, that kind of stuff. So we create a map of the internet, and then we put both things together, the information coming from our library and this profiling that we are doing of the dark internet, to detect DDoS attacks thanks to a machine learning AI kind of algorithm, right? So the system can automatically classify and identify DDoS attacks without any configuration from your side, right? Second, you need something lightning fast. So up to now, most DDoS solutions were using the so-called flow protocols. These include NetFlow and any NetFlow variant, like Cflow, JFlow, IPFix, any flow protocols. But if you know more or less how these flow protocols work, the idea is, okay, so you have your router, right? And first, they will sample the traffic. So let's say out of 1,000 packets, they will take one. So, okay, you have the traffic flowing through the router, they will take one packet and they will store it, right? Because it is a flow aggregation protocol, remember. So they will store it. Then another packet and store it. They will aggregate the packets into flows. And then when the timer expires, normally it's 30, 60 seconds, depending on the configuration and on the cache timers. So all these flows together will be sent to the collector. That's how these flow protocols work. So imagine you get an attack, right? So the attack starts coming and the routers forwards the traffic to your victim. So the victim is already getting the traffic. And the router is like, okay, let's take this packet, let's keep it here, one more, okay, this packet, keep it here, and then the timer expires and you send all the flow together to the collector. So after, I don't know, 1 minute, the collector gets the traffic and is like, what the hell, right? So, you know, it's already too late. So the router is passing the traffic, but the collector does not know that there is an ongoing attack, right? This is how flow protocols work. Now, if you move to packet sampling protocols that I will explain now in a second, then there is no more flow aggregation because it's only packet sampling. So let's say that you take one packet out of 1,000. So you take the packet and immediately you send that packet to the collector, right? So in less than 1 second, the collector will get the packet, will get the traffic. So we'll know what's happening on the network, right? It's much, much faster. And second thing is, on traditional flow protocols like NetFlow and the likes, there's only certain parameters of the packets that are actually sent to the collector. So not even the full header is sent to the collector. Only a few parameters of it are sent, right? What is defined in the standard, basically. While with packet sampling protocols, you are actually sending the packet, not the whole packet, because you slice it. You normally send the first 128 bytes of the packet, but still, you send the packet, right? So it contains the full header, so you can take advantage of additional parameters of the header, like I put here the TCP sequence number or ACK number. So you can see those parameters. And also you can see the beginning of the payload, because remember, if we are sending, let's say, 128 bytes, that includes the full header and also the beginning of the payload. So for instance, for DNS attacks, that's very useful because you will most probably see the complete query, the complete DNS query. So the system, the collector, Deepfield in this case, can very easily analyze whether this is a legitimate DNS query or if it's an attack, right? So this is what you get with packet sampling protocols. There is no cache, so you can detect DDoS in real time, and then you get the full thing, the full header and the beginning of the payload as well. And when we talk about packet sampling protocols, what protocols do I mean? So I have 3 options for you here. So the first one is SPM. SPM stands for Sampled Port Mirroring. So this protocol is supported by both Nokia and Juniper, and as the name suggests, it's a mirror. Now, when I talk about a mirror, people is usually scared. You know, I run a big network. How am I mirroring my traffic to the collector? Well, if you have a 1 terabit per second network, this will mirror 30 meg of traffic to the collector. That's peanuts, right? For a 1 tera network, you mirror 30 meg, right? That's peanuts. Because remember, this is sampled and sliced. So for a typical configuration where you mirror one packet out of 5,000 and the first 128 bytes, and assuming an average packet size in your network of 1100, which is more or less what we see out there in the internet, then you will mirror 30 meg. Okay, you can afford it. But so yeah, it's sampled and sliced, but it's still a mirror, right? So the moment the router gets the traffic, yes, it will forward it, and at the same time, it will mirror it to the collector. So we will get the traffic right away and with the full details that I explained before. Second option, IPFix 315. And there is an important number here, 315, right? Because if you know IPFix is a flow aggregation protocol. But IPFix 315 is a packet sampling protocol. They are different protocols, okay? So please don't confuse them. IPFix 315, standing for IPFix Information Elements 315, right? This is supported by Nokia, Juniper, and Cisco. Juniper calls this protocol IMON, but it's the same thing. So 315 is there. It's the same thing. It will take the packet, sampled, sliced, and then send it to the collector. So yeah, that's your second option there. And third option, SFlow, well-known one. It's normally implemented by switch vendors like Arista, for example. All right. So these are the protocols that you can use for fast detection. And this slide, as you see, is not mine. This slide comes from Vite, which is a well-known provider here. They tested SPM and they compared it to traditional NetFlow, right? And they presented this slide at a public event last year. So that's why I'm reusing it here. So in this graph, you can actually see 3 lines. So you have the first line here, then second line and third line very close together, right? So this first line here shows the traffic as reported by SPM, all right? So they use this mirror. So SPM reported an increase in the traffic. This was a testing attack in lab, I believe, or a real lab. I don't remember now. Thing is, so SPM reported this traffic growth, right? Then a few seconds later, 30 seconds, we can see a second line. In these 30 seconds, the system, the router mirrored this traffic to the system, to the collector, to Deepfield. Deepfield categorized, identified the attack, created a mitigation strategy for the attack, pushed the filters to the routers because Vite was using for this testing a router to mitigate this attack. The router dropped the traffic and then SPM reported the traffic being dropped back to the collector, right? So 30 seconds later, you can see a line here, which is the dropped traffic as reported by SPM, right? And then there is a third line a few seconds later, 3 seconds later, the third line, which is the DDoS traffic reported by NetFlow. So NetFlow reported the DDoS attack after it was being mitigated by the system. Thanks, NetFlow. So the attack was detected, was mitigated, and 3 seconds later, NetFlow said, hey, there is an attack. Cool, thanks. Okay, so yeah, this slide comes from Vite. And then my third point was you really need to mitigate the attack at scale. Imagine that you get one of these large attacks. For this, you have 2 options. Option number 1, your routers. So you have very powerful routers out there, right? Use them. Okay. Of course, I will promote Nokia routers. If you have other vendors, they might work as well, depending on the model. Use your routers. I mean, they are really powerful. They can mitigate very large attacks at scale. So in the case of the Nokia routers using FP4, FP5, FP5 is our latest chipset generation. FP4 is the previous one, but the mitigation capacity is the same in terms of filter entries, of course, not in bandwidth. The filter scale is 256,000 filter entries on a single chip, right? If you go to other vendors, these numbers will be smaller, but sometimes it's enough to mitigate attacks. Now, when you go and buy a router, something you need to look at is the amount of filter entries they can install and if they are able to keep line rate while installing these many filter entries. So in the case of the Nokia routers with the FP4 and FP5 chipset, we can install 256,000 filter entries while maintaining line rate for every single port, right? That's very important. Some of the devices that were mentioned yesterday were tested by some of our customers, and they got bad surprise when they tested the throughput of the line card, right? So yes, in theory, you can install many filter entries, but once you start installing more and more filter entries, then the performance of the line card decreases, right? So make sure you can install many filter entries in your routers, but please make sure that they behave line rate when you grow this number, right? So yeah, in the case of our routers, 256,000 filter entries at line rate, and they can be programmed really fast. Second option, if you don't have that powerful routers, or if you are not willing to use them for DDoS mitigation, you can use your DMS. DMS is the appliance where you can mitigate the attack. So our DMS can mitigate up to 2.8 terabit per second attack. Of course, you don't need to enable all of it at the same time. You can enable smaller license tiers, right? But yeah, 2.8 terabit per second on a single appliance. So you really need to mitigate at scale. And before we close, just one bonus. So this is how you see an attack in Deepfield, right? So you can use our predefined charts or create your own charts to see how the attack looks like. And you get this with 10-second granularity, right? For instance, this is an attack that one of our customers got last week, if I recall. So this is how you see more or less the attack coming with the vectors. You can analyze the protocols, the source countries where the attack was coming from, or you can see like the destination UDP port, the TTL that the attackers were using for this. Any parameter that you want to look at, right? So coming back to my question in the beginning, how do you need your DDoS tool to be today? First, you need it automated with secure union. You want it lightning fast with our packet sampling protocols, and you want to mitigate your attacks at scale thanks to our FP family. Thank you.